What do you think? I'm Israel. You're the Palestinians in Gaza. If every one of the people in Gaza laid down the arms and stopped attacking, what would I, Israel, do to you?
It's a good question.
Nothing. They've tried it 5 different times. They've literally stop attacking. Israel has never, not one time in history, initiated any conflict. Every single one of those things that you're pointing to is a retaliatory attack by a terrorist organization. But if that was switched, where I, Israel, you, Hamas in Gaza, I take all of my arms and all of my protection and I laid them down, what would Hamas do? They would kill every single one of us. That's what they do. That's what they're sworn to do. That's their motto and the origin of their existence, all the way back to the Grand Mufti traveling to Hitler to ask, how do we solve the Jewish problem? Like, you want to follow from the Hamas to the Muslim Brotherhood, all the way back to the Grand Mufti, to Mujahideen, and you see the origins of one thing, which is, how do I solve the Jewish problem, is to eradicate and kill them. That is what Hamas came from. Not the Palestinians, not those poor people stuck in Gaza. But in that problem, if all of Hamas just went away, we would have peace. If they laid down their arms and they stopped murdering innocent civilians and raping women and killing babies, you'd have peace. If the other side laid down their arms, they would all be murdered, all 7.5 million of them, until they just were walking in blood through the Jordan River. How do you solve this problem? The radicals have to be eliminated. The terrorists have to go away. That is not, I'm not conflating the Palestinians and the terrorists. Those are separate things. But if there's 2.5 million people that are living in Gaza that are allowing 30,000 terrorists to run them, at some point, the olive branch cannot be extended from Israel when 30,000 people are using that region to launch attacks into their sovereign nation.
And we were talking about the propaganda that exists in America. What about the propaganda that exists in Palestine? I mean, what is their thought?
Oh, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So, did you see the hospital that got destroyed?
Well, it didn't really, right?
No, it did not really.
No, but the New York Times said it did.
Yes,
the New
it
York
did.
Times said it was
and congresswomen,
which is insane, and they didn't retract it. They
yeah.
said
you take
it was
horse dewormer, and and Israel destroyed a hospital.
Yeah.
So evil.
It's so crazy that they printed that in the New York Times. I mean, that's the paper of record. That's the most important newspaper that we have in America in terms of if we wanted an objective source of information. Most people say, what's the best? Look, I used to deliver the New York Times when I was a kid. And I did it. It wasn't even that profitable. I delivered the Boston Globe was my main newspaper that I delivered. And then I delivered the Boston Herald as well. And then I got a New York Times route, and I was proud of that because the New York Times was the real newspaper that intelligent people read.
Yeah.
And it was a different plastic wrapper.
Yeah, yeah.
You got a clear...
That's
you got
the
a
good
clear wrapper for the Herald and a clear wrapper for the Globe, but for the New York Times, I got a blue wrapper. And I was like one of the people that got to deliver the New York Times. And I remember thinking as a 20-year-old kid, like, oh boy, I'm delivering the New York Times. And when I would drop the paper off at these people's houses, like, that's a fucking smart house. Yeah. These people are reading the New York Times in Boston. And I remember thinking that. I was proud of that I delivered the best newspaper in the world. Really, I literally wasn't that much money, and it was a crazy route because I'd have to go a mile in between houses. Whereas with the Boston Globe, I'd have 5-6 houses on one street that I would drop off papers to. And the New York Times, I'd have this fucking crazy route. I'd have to go all over the place to get rid of 100 newspapers.
Yeah, and then now in 2023, they're circulating terrorist propaganda.
Yeah, and with no
repercussions.
No repercussions. And what do they make? Did they even print a retraction? Did they say we fucked up?
You watch a missile get launched from Gaza. You know, 1/3 of all missiles that are launched from Gaza land in Gaza. Do you know think about how sad that is?
Is that real?
28% of missiles launched from Hamas land on top of the Palestinian people.
Jesus Christ.
And obviously they have no ability to direct any military target when these crappy missiles are being launched into Israel. They're just like populated area. Populated. I went and did a Fox News stand up in the city directly north of Gaza. That is the most rocketed city in all of Israel. And in like the one day that we were there, we had like 6 rocket attack sirens go off. You know, it's the weirdest thing that the Palestinians are allowing Hamas to literally kill them and pillage everything about their existence from them. Hamas is so rich and so powerful. $70 million from Iran. You know, every humanitarian ship that comes into the port, or right now that is being brought up through the Rafah Gate via Egypt into the south portion of Gaza, the moment that lands there, that is taken control of by Hamas. They then build underground infrastructure in the tunnels, and they build military infrastructure, and then they turn as whatever they can into rockets. And the humanitarian aid that is supposed to be distributed to the people, they have control of. Like, they have to go, not the Palestinians. They have been so screwed by Hamas,
but the propaganda
and by the PLO
that they encounter in Palestine has to be insane.
Yeah, they believe that they're on the good side. How do they sift through fact from fiction when what they're being told and being fed is being fed to them by Hamas? Like, how do
they get access to other information? And how do they ever like organize and discuss this openly without fear of losing their lives and being tortured?
The only time that you had consistent water and power going into Gaza was when Israel was controlling Gaza. Now that Hamas is running it, it is nightmarish in there. But they're still in charge. And they're being protected. And here in the United States, being like called freedom fighters. Like, they are barbaric murderers and absolute terrorists that want nothing besides the genocide of when I saw like the LGBTQ flags of LGBT stands with Hamas, mind is blown.
Isn't it hilarious that have you ever seen that meme that it says queers for Palestine and then Palestine for queers? Like, yeah. They wouldn't live
there like hours. They'd be pushed off a rooftop or burnt alive. Immediately.
But they don't. But the narrative in this country is not that. Which is so strange. I don't know. That like there's sort of overwhelming evidence about the approach that they have to gay people.
Yeah.
But yet somehow or another, there's this "I stand with Palestine" thing that makes you a progressive.
Go to Tel Aviv as a gay person. Walk around with your gay pride shirt with your husband or wife of the same sex. Nobody will bat an eye at you. Nobody cares. Everybody's like, what up? You know, like, normal. Man, if she and her wife tried to walk down the road in Gaza, oh man. You know, and it is so, this tinderbox that is that region with the West Bank, with the Golan Heights in the north, with Hezbollah, which is being supported by Iran. They're all positioned on the border, you know, with Iraq allowing people from Afghanistan, the Taliban, to move through. Taliban being funded by us, $40 million right now is what we're continually giving them, the Taliban.
Why do we do that?
I don't know. I don't know.
What's the cynical side of you?
We want to recognize them as a legitimate government, and we are paying for them to start a democratic process of like that. That is I think would be the tagline of what we want them to do. What it is actually doing is the same thing that happens when we release $6 billion to Iran in exchange for hostages. They then take that $6 billion. No, they're not using that exact money to fund terrorism with Hezbollah or Hamas, but I have one bank account that has an additional $6 billion in it. And now I'm able to spend $6 billion over here to finance other things that are going to destabilize the nation that I have sworn to eradicate, Israel and America. So like, cool. I'll happily give some more money to, they've been planning this for 4 years. The Quds, like the Iranian special operations guys, training and preparing Hamas, advising on how to execute this. How do they get the intelligence to know what direction they need to fly with their paragliders, which areas, which you don't think they had scouts in all the kibbutzes around Gaza to identify which houses they're going to be targeting? How did they find all that stuff out? The people that Israel was allowing out of Gaza to work as agricultural workers, they were going into these areas, into these kibbutzes, into these houses, into these villages, doing recons for Hamas. So then when Hamas launched their attack on October 7th, they had been funded. There's this amazing book called The New Rules of War. And The New Rules of War lines out all of the ways that America is not prepared to fight a war. By non-state actors, by corporations, by cartels, by violent extremist organizations, using proxy methods. So like we are at war with Iran, period. They are funding every single group that just attacked our American base in Syria, that attacked our American base in Iraq, that attacked and killed a bunch of Americans in Israel. That was funded by Iran and trained by Iran. But we don't have the appetite to try and fight the war that they're fighting because they're doing it in just such a, we want that World War II, right? We want Patton standing on top of a tank, coming across, being like, there's Rommel, go and get him. Like that war is never going to happen again. And we are just not ready to fight this new type of war under these new rules of war, which is fighting non-state actors, fighting proxy wars, fighting corporations funded by governments, fighting cartels that are getting subsidized by governments, all to destabilize the greatest nation to ever exist in the history of mankind, us.
You were saying that you think we're more vulnerable now than we've ever been before, and you're legitimately worried that the United States might fall.
I am more worried now because of the lack of preparedness of the individual. Americans are fatter than they've ever been. They are, even though there's more guns now owned, there are fewer per capita owned by individual with people that train regularly with them, people that are able to provide and protect for their families. All the metrics of measurements of like, that family's going to be okay. That is the smallest that it's ever been. And our government right now is more vulnerable internationally than we've ever been. Our military is, even though I'm so proud to be a service member, when the Army tells me to do something, I 100% have no say whatsoever. I got to go and do it. And I'm really proud to be part of the most elite fighting force on the planet. I think we are the weakest that we've ever been for a variety of reasons. When you put all of these things together and you just take a step back and like the aggregate, like the accumulation of all of these different factors make me be like, holy crap, we are vulnerable. And the only way to combat that is the individual to start taking their own security and preparedness seriously. Get less fat, get more healthy, go and train, go and buy a gun, go start exercising your freedoms. Like learn what it means to volunteer in your school. So you have like, cool, you can't start your own school. Cool, you can't homeschool. Well, get involved in your kid's school. But like, you got to do something because if we continue down the path that we're in, we're done for. Like soon, not in like a generation, like right now. I'm scared. I'm gonna drink water.
Jesus Christ.